It was meant to be a run-of-the-mill daytime gabfest rehashing the latest updates on Meghan Markle's polarizing exploits as a post-royal media conquistadora. But the raucous Hot Topic segment rapidly spiraled into one of the most explosive, if not outright unhinged, on-air confrontations in The View's 25-year history. Co-hosts Sarah Haynes and Sunny Hostin had kicked things off by weighing in on the former Duchess of Sussex's freshly launched podcast series, the cryptically titled Archetypes, which promised unvarnished perspectives on dismantling antiquated societal stereotypes and empowering women through candid conversations. "I'll give Meghan credit for this much, she's definitely living out the overachiever brand she's cultivated ever since Megxit," Haynes quipped in kicking off the discussion. "We're barely into the second year of the Sussex's so-called American period, and she's already launched a massive Netflix development slate, multimedia publishing juggernaut, and now this unvarnished podcast putting her freakishly persuasive voice out there." As the daughter of an African-American father and Hispanic mother, Sunny Hostin expressed cautious optimism that the Duchess's new media and commentary platforms could yield productive dialogue on representational inclusion. But she also acknowledged skepticism over whether Markle had the humility or skill set to deftly navigate the inherent minefields of her endeavors. "We've already seen shades of sanctimony and white-privileged feminism creep into how Meghan unpacks these conversations on marginalized identity," the former federal prosecutor noted. "She makes these Marxian sweeping generalizations about women being universally disadvantaged across socioeconomic strata and cultural contexts. Yet she has virtually no first-hand frame of reference for ever struggling with poverty, housing instability, food insecurity, or lack of educational access as a biracial woman. Don't get me wrong, she has opened up vital spaces for mixed heritage voices previously suppressed by the British aristocracy." Hostin continued. "And I salute her efforts to destigmatize mental health and dismantle toxic masculinity norms in her own partnership. But Meghan can also come across as utterly clueless to how her Duchess pedigree and $100 million media empire actively distances the average woman of color from relating to her professed shared struggles." The segment had been chugging along predictably enough, with Liberal co-host Joy Behar lobbing her usual cavalcade of snarky rejoinders about the polarizing Duchess, projecting so much wokeness she's becoming the munificent Meryl Streep of the Oppression Olympics. But any residual notions this would shape up as another pedestrian gabbing match were shattered the moment Whoopi Goldberg ripped off her lensed, fossil, brand glasses and forcefully slammed them upon the Hot Topics desk. "Oh, I am done giving Princess Shukasreva even an ounce of the benefit of the doubt," the Oscar and Emmy winner seethed through gritted teeth. "I've remained relatively mum on the whole Meghan situation out of trying to be objective, but that charade ends today." Goldberg then stood up and paced toward the live studio audience, her towering 6 feet 3 inches stature looming like an enraged Sasquatch. Behar and her co-host stared in stunned silence, displaying visible apprehension over what detonation was forthcoming. "Because the way I now see it after monitoring Meghan's runaway ego and perpetual instincts for torching every bridge, institution or relationship that rejects her woke demagogic agenda, she's on an undeniable collision course crash," Goldberg roared in simmering rage. "And the sad reality is she'll inevitably combust and collapse into a charred, forgotten heap of rubble, just like Jenifer freakin' Lopez if she's not already careful." The jarring name drop of the world-renowned multi-hyphenate pop culture luminary immediately sent shockwaves rippling across the studio. Gasps and murmurs of disbelief from the crowd could be overheard. Sarah Haynes audibly squirmed in her creaking chair, tugging at the taut neckline of her sleeveless floral pattern dress. Ana Navarro buried her head in her palm while Sunny Hostin reached for her insulated mug of morning coffee and quickly gulped down the remaining dregs. "Sister Wayawat?" The typically unflappable, wisecracking Behar blurted out instinctively in hushed bewilderment over her friend's inexplicable outburst. "Did you seriously just compare the arc of Markle's post-palace pivot to the tragic hubris-addled flameout of Ms. Lopatin herself? The Bronx burlesque? That's just deranged." Whoopi swiveled 180 degrees toward Behar and aimed one of her patented searing glares that conveyed zero remnants of humor or camaraderie. "What, so now I'm the one being irrational and deranged?" she shouted back through exasperated waves of fiery eyes and dagger stares. Jenny from Cortlantic City has been falling off bigger and bigger cliffs with each increasingly desperate grasp for dwindling cultural relevance. And she's nothing compared to the kamikaze desperation nuking that's brewing behind her royal thirstiness vacant shill gaze. It was at this point that Whoopi seemed to descend into a bizarre dissociative fugue state fueled by indiscriminate rage toward both women, as though she had been harboring decades of pent-up resentments against the very commercial forces each represented. The beloved comedic icon fixated upon Lopez and Markle as being archetypal heralds of unrestrained ego and grifting narcissism perpetually fueled by the increasingly insatiable engines of pop culture ephemera. I tried to give Ms. Multitudinous Nickelodeon spin-offs a fair shot at maturing beyond her trite bronzed and hustled persona after her first 2 box office smash hits. Just a couple massive novelty albums and overinflated fragrance endorsements on the side, enough to make a shrewd businesswoman blush, Goldberg ranted with increasingly erratic hand gestures punctuating the air. But Jenny just kept on grinding that Cucamonga-hood-elated cash register against all odds and common decency. I mean, what emotionally sturdy adult woman tries remolding her entire identity and branding around some hyper-exoticized, impossibly shaped, Lolita fever dream mirage? Oh wait, besides the one who single-handedly dynamited the British royal dynasty? Goldberg's already visible reddening flushed even deeper into more alarming shades and never glimpsed during her occasional flare-ups of righteous indignation over the decades. She pulled a wrinkled magazine cover from her linen pantsuit pocket and shook it furiously toward the camera. Christ, look at these ridiculous, Hollywood royalty, PR poses she did atop that flaming bodysuit stretched across every delicatessen rack in creation. And that's only the tamest glimpse into her endless thirst trapades. We all already know about Cryshank, that cinematic albatross of sapphic baiting. Don't even get me started on that monster-in-law perversion she greenlit. All those nauseating, predatory dance numbers with compulsorily oiled-up boy toys half her advanced ages at the time. The enraptured co-hosts remained utterly speechless and slack-jawed, still visibly confused over what wellspring of resentment had unleashed their moderator's torrent of psychological projection upon 2 Latina entertains so chronologically separated across pop culture epochs. Even Ana Navarro, the sole conservative panelist typically immune to any form of sustained rhetorical intimidation, seemed rattled to her very core. Based on the story provided, Whoopi Goldberg's criticism of Meghan Markle seems extremely harsh and over the top. Here are a few key points on why her rant appears unjustified. It conflates Meghan's situation with that of Jenifer Lopez in an irrational way. Comparing Meghan to J.Lo's perceived, desperate, attempts to stay relevant makes little sense, as they are at very different career stages and contexts. It makes wild speculations about Meghan's motivations and personality that are not backed up by evidence. Calling her a woke demagogue with a runaway ego, who will inevitably combust and collapse, is extremely hyperbolic. It passes extremely harsh and personal judgments on Meghan that go well beyond fair criticism of her podcast or media efforts. The rant veers into irrational territory with insults like Princess Shukasreva. Whoopi seems to be projecting her own long-harbored resentments about certain aspects of celebrity culture onto Meghan in an unfair way, rather than evaluating her specifically. The over-the-top anger and vitriol expressed goes far beyond what would be warranted as professional criticism on a talk show segment. While public figures open themselves to scrutiny, Whoopi's diatribe as described comes across as a personal character assassination filled with unfair assumptions and irrational comparisons. Reasonable criticism could potentially be made about Meghan's new ventures, but this rant devolves into an unhinged tantrum berating her very existence and identity. Unless Meghan had done something truly egregious to provoke it, this level of unrestrained hostility from Whoopi seems unjustified and unbecoming of a respected media personality. Public figures deserve criticisms based on facts and reason, not unsubstantiated character attacks.